So you want to create a budget? Are you interested in stretching your finances or disciplining yourself to save more? Or maybe you just want to manage your money better. Budgeting can be an extremely effective way to make your money go farther. It really is the way to truly manage your money. Imagine a company or government existing without a budget. Personal budgets are no different. A budget can be very easy to create. This video will show you how. And budgeting can even be fun if you have the right tools. I've divided the budgeting process into 4 steps. The first step is to calculate your available funds. In most cases, this is your periodic income, or it may be your retirement annuity, or it could simply be the amount you want to make available for spending. 2 pieces of information are needed: the amount of income available and the frequency it is received, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, etc. Don't forget to remove taxes when calculating the amount available. Be conservative when calculating the amount. It is very easy to overspend a budget, so you always want to have an extra set aside. I recommend leaving out 10 to 20% of the after-tax income as a buffer. Also, be sure to underestimate your income if it varies from period to period. It's better to add extra income in later than to spend more than you receive. You can choose whatever frequency you are comfortable with, but monthly buckets tend to be the easiest to calculate. As an example, assume a scenario where you have 2 incomes. One income brings in $2,400 per month. The second income brings in $500 per week. This can be adjusted to $2,150 per month by multiplying 500 by 4.3 weeks in a month. Therefore, the total monthly income is $4,550. Next, you want to remove taxes from this total. I like to use 30% as a safe combined federal, state, and local tax rate, but you should check your own rates. Removing 30% from the $4,550 leaves $3,185. Finally, I recommend making an additional adjustment to be conservative. Let's take 85% of the after-tax income, which leaves $2,700 per month available for budgeting. The second step is to identify your spending categories. These are the different buckets of expenses that you have, and they should cover all the ways you spend money. First, try to make a list of all of your expense types. Then, see if you can group any complementary categories. Complementary means that they could substitute each other because spending in one would replace spending in another. For example, it's good to combine cell phone and home phone expenses because they substitute each other. If you use your cell phone more, you will use your home phone less, and vice versa. If you're trying to save money, it's important to understand what the total spending is in complementary categories like this. Another example could be groceries and lunches, because eating out for lunch would probably keep your grocery bill down. But if you decided to pack your own lunches, your grocery bill would increase. You always need to include a generic category for miscellaneous expenses, because there will always be some expenses that don't fit any category. As you're finalizing your list, try to keep the total number of categories less than 20. Too many categories simply becomes unmanageable. Here are some examples of common categories. Each person's situation is different, so your list will not match this list exactly. But some categories are universal, such as food, clothing, or medicine. You may find that it is easiest to separate categories with fixed monthly spending amounts, because you know exactly how much you need to allocate to these categories. Variable categories, on the other hand, require some guesswork, and it can be confusing combining variable amounts with fixed amounts. The third step is to distribute your available funds across the spending categories you have identified. This is where you identify how much each spending category needs, or how much you want to allow yourself to spend in each category. This is easy for categories with fixed spending amounts, but it can be guesswork for the variable categories. Try not to underestimate your real needs in these variable categories. Also, don't underestimate the amount needed for miscellaneous, you will find that you have a lot of expenses that don't fit any of the standard categories. When you are finished distributing funds, the total amount distributed should be less than or equal to the total available funds. Don't forget that you should use the same frequency for all categories as you used for income. In other words, if you calculated available funds in monthly buckets, you should assign spending amounts in monthly buckets also. As you recall from our example, we have $2,700 available to spend per month. This is the total that we can distribute across our spending categories. First, rent is a fixed amount. So let's enter our monthly rent. Transportation is partly fixed, with monthly insurance and car payments. But there is also a variable component for gas and car repairs. Let's enter $500. You can see that we have now distributed a total of $1,600. Let's enter $600 for food, $200 for miscellaneous, $200 for savings, and we have $100 left for clothing. Note that the total distributed is now equal to the available amount. We cannot distribute any more, but we could adjust amounts by moving money around from one category to another. At this point, we have finished creating a budget. Congratulations! However, the hard part is still ahead, tracking your spending to make sure that you follow your budget. This is where budgeting can get tedious if done on paper, and this is where our computerized spreadsheet or specialized software comes in handy. The task here is to assign each new expense to a relevant category so you can make sure that you don't spend more than the budgeted amount. It is very important that you capture all expenses, because if you don't, it will seem like you have more available to spend than you really do. At the end of each period, subtract your expenses from your available amounts to see what you have left over. At the beginning of each new period, add new allotment amounts to each category to calculate how much is available for the next period. Here is our example with spending amounts entered for the first month. We had $2,700 available to spend, and we spent $2,630. A balance has been calculated for each category, showing the amount that is left at the end of the month. Note the transportation category, where we actually spent more than the allocated amount. The transportation balance is negative $100. This is not terrible though, because even though we overspent transportation, we underspent other categories, so our net balance is still positive. In the second month, you repeat the same process, but now the available amount is calculated from the previous month's balance. For example, in miscellaneous, the month 1 balance of $50 plus the $200 monthly allocation equals $250, which becomes the amount available for spending in month 2. In month 2, spending is tracked just like month 1, and the same process is repeated each month after that. Note how transportation shows a positive balance after month 2. Since we only spent $350 in month 2, the available balance is now in good shape. That's all there is to it. We covered how to create a budget and how to track it. As you saw, creating a budget is very easy. Tracking a budget is a little harder, but can actually be fun when you have the right tools. It can be very satisfying to see your available balances grow as you discipline your spending, and to watch savings grow as you regularly set aside money to that category. Here are a couple tips in parting. Keep in mind that you will spend what you budget, so be conservative in your allocations. If you see that you have money available for clothes, it's hard not to spend it on clothes. I used monthly buckets in these examples because they are the easiest to calculate. However, you may find that expense tracking works better in weekly buckets. It can be hard to keep track of expenses for a whole month. And the final, most important point is that it is very important to synchronize your budget with reality regularly. No matter how conscientious you are, some expenses will be missed, and this will cause your available balances to get out of sync with reality. This is the primary reason budgets fail for many people. These missed expenses can add up quickly, so it is important to have a method for identifying them and synchronizing your budget. 3D Budget personal budgeting software solves this issue by telling you what expenses have been missed. Its patented reconciliation functionality allows you to balance your budget whenever you want by correcting missed expenses, so it will always be in sync with your available funds. 3D Budget can be downloaded for a free 30-day trial at www.3dbudget.com. Thank you, and happy budgeting.